oh, is it on? Oh, yeah. Now your camera's on. Who knows? Um, Folks, I appreciate it. Jeff, I appreciate it very much. What we're doing, my job here is just as an educator. My job is a voice to really just help solve people. I'm the Neo of the financial services world. Kind of look at me like that. So, in regards to planning conversations, you want to speak with someone who actually does that for a living. So we can always introduce you to someone that does that extremely well. So we'll have the opportunity to do that. You'll have three different opportunities throughout the evening to basically take us up and jump on a calendar for us for a couple different reasons. One, really initially, is if you feel that you want to just have some simple questions. It's really just maybe a 15-minute call. And that discussion really is just a consult. So I'll pin that to the top. That's just for a 15-minute conversation, and just have a conversation. You'll have some alternative options as we go out throughout the night to do some more things. And for those of you that stay to the end, there is a very special offer. So a little bit of enticement there, but you'll see as we go throughout the night that we'll earn that value for you. So without further ado, let me kind of get going. First of all, folks, we fully believe here, and I don't know if anyone here this evening is a conspiracy theorist tonight, but does anyone else feel that things just maybe aren't quite right in our world? Let's just say that things are weird. Maybe that's the most politically correct definition of our world today. But when we take a look at the broader perspective of our economic world, which is what we work in, we believe that we are currently staring at a massive economical inflection point. And what I mean is when we take a look back in time, when we go back into January of 2024, the US government had a debt of $34 trillion. And then we fast forward to July of 24, we were $35 trillion. November 24, $36 trillion. Now August just of this year, we're already at $37 trillion. So our debt is incredible, but what's more incredible is the debt acceleration. We are now currently adding $1 trillion to the national debt every 5 months. That is, it's mathematically impossible to get it all taken care of if we don't make necessary changes. Twice as fast as the average rate over the last 25 years. I think we all need to make sure that we understand that if we're going to be retired, we're probably going to be retired for 20, 30 years. So how much more of a problem is this going to become in the future? And almost contradicting this information is that taxes today are at a historic low point. So we were as high as 91% back in the 50s and 60s, in the 70s, 70%. And then today we're at 37%. And this is specifically why we say that we are at that inflection point, because the top tax rate is now currently only 37%. So you have kind of an interesting opportunity, we believe here, that we have available to us. We're in a unique window of time that we don't believe is going to last very long. It's basically a once in a, maybe a generation opportunity for some of you. And it's a second, maybe a second chance to take advantage of what, we're going to be talking about this evening tonight over the next several years. So let's begin our story with an update in the most recent legislation that directly affects anyone that wants to retire and then distribute their assets in a most optimal fashion. So the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, right? The TCJA was made permanent in this act, and it was passed through something called budget reconciliation. And it makes permanent the previously temporary tax cut from the 2017 Act. So many may know this or call this as the Trump's tax, right? So now this is at a cost of $4.6 trillion added to the national debt over the last 10 years. Now, I would point out, and it's important to note, when you're at home, I would make sure that you're taking notes and keeping track of these things because it's important for you. Reconciliation allows passing future tax legislation with a simple majority instead of the standard requirement, which is 60 votes. So I think it's important that you understand this, because Congress cannot use reconciliation again for 8 years for major tax changes. And then after 2033, all tax legislation, including any increases or decreases, will require a full 60 Senate votes. So the filibuster rules makes it much more difficult for the future of tax relief to be achieved in the future. So even when today's tax rates permanently locked in that we have right now, the debt crisis is going to eventually force future tax increases. So when we take a look at in 2025, these cuts, again, were made permanent. In 2033, reconciliation expires. And the beyond that, tax rate risk peaks significantly. So we have political risk and tax risk beyond that 2033. And if some of you, pay attention to Social Security, some say it 2033, 2033, 2034, is it when Social Security is supposed to be bankrupt? So experts believe that that Social Security benefits are going to decrease by 21 to 24%, which is astounding because 30% of most retirees' income that they utilize is Social Security, so they're dependent on that, right? And then 51%, I believe now, maybe 52% of Social Security beneficiaries live 100% on Social Security, so it could be very, very bad in the future. So again, political risk and tax risks, and we want to be able to do is what we always say is control what you can control, right? And these things are things that we can't control. We can move around them and bypass the burdens of them, but we have to do so in accordance in this window. That's why we say that this is an inflection point. So this is the unique opportunity that we discuss. So I always kind of want to run a scenario for you. Okay, so let's say that you needed some money, you needed some funds, and you knew that I was a man of means, and you come to me and ask, and I say, hey, listen, no problem. Now I fill out the check and then I slide that across the table to you, and you see the word loan in the bottom left corner. What would you want to know about that loan before you cash that check? I would assume your answer would be the terms and the rates, right? So I tell you, hey, listen, John, I know you're going to be good for it, and I don't want to add more monthly payments for you right now. I know you'll get it back from where you're good for it. So as far as rates, at some point in the future, based off of how I feel at that point, I'm going to then determine the rates and then backdate them all the way to day one. Please, in the chat, let me know how many of you would want to cash that check with unknown terms and unknown rates. Because most of you, I would assume, would turn it down, because what I just described is the worst debt imaginable. Debt with unknown terms, unknown rates. And none of you want to cash that check. So I want you to remember that analogy throughout the presentation tonight. Because as it relates to retirement, there's only two real major tax structures that we need to talk about. And that's qualified accounts and Roth accounts. So the difference is when you make your deposits into a qualified account, they're tax deductible. So you don't pay any tax on the deposits. These are your 401ks, your IRAs, 403bs, 457s, TSPs, SEP plans for small pensions or self-employed pensions. You don't pay taxes until you withdraw in the future. In a Roth account, when you make your deposits, you do it with after-tax money. So the money is taxed and then it's deposited. So this is the conversation of the seed versus the harvest, right? So if you were a farmer and you went out and you planted all your seed in the field and you watered it and weeded it and it grew up into this big harvest, when you, Mr. Farmer, when do you want to pay taxes on that? One time on the seed when you lay it in the ground, or on every kernel and every ear of corn that grows into that giant harvest? The government, we always make fun of them and say that they don't have calculators that work, but I'm telling you that they do, and this presentation is going to show that clearly. Next, we look at tax-free growth. In both accounts, during the growth phase, they're both tax deferred. The big difference comes down to the distributions in the distribution phase of retirement, right? This is when I'm no longer working for an income and I need to either need to distribute my assets because I don't have enough money, for Social Security to cover my income. So I have to have, and I don't have pensions. So I have to create a pension, a personal pension. And now I have to distribute my assets properly. I want to do it, which optimizes my situation. Qualified accounts are taxed when money comes out in the future at some unknown tax rate. while Roth distributions are tax-free. So it's just kind of a reverse of how that works. So the question is do we pay taxes now and never worry about taxes again? Or do we pay them later at a date, again, with unknown future tax rates? Or do we want to use the government's schedule called RMDs, or forced required minimum distributions? Remember, earlier when I was talking about the worst debt imaginable, well, I just described a tax deferred account. It doesn't mean 401ks are bad. It doesn't mean that IRAs are bad. They're a tax code. That's all they are. They're just an account. But from the perspective of when I'm drawing out, that's when they can become a problem for many. So now we want to take a look and we want to assess the situation that we have to deal with. So let's talk about one of our client situations that we recently helped secure more lifetime wealth. It's a conversation that we like to have. It's called lifetime wealth. You're going to live for a certain amount of time, and we want to help you optimize that time period and have you create the most lifetime wealth, both when you're alive and when you're past. So it's a pretty simple strategy. It's a spend more, give more strategy. Spend more money while you're here and enjoy your retirement years lavishly as you possibly can, and give more to your charities and kids and grandkids when you pass. And the great thing is that's all just math. So let's meet Tom and Mary. Each of them have $1 million in their IRA that's compounding. We're just going to be very conservative at a 6% hypothetical growth rate. Now, side note, everything that I'm talking about here this evening is hypothetical. It's just designed to educate you, illuminate you a little bit, just to see the various ways that these things can happen. So Tom and Mary have a very important decision to make. Again, they're in a window of opportunity they have right now. And that decision is, do we pay the taxes now or do we pay the taxes later? To Roth or not to Roth? That is the question. And that is a serious question for many of you, is do I do this or do I not do this? So let's take a look at it and see if it makes sense, because the great thing about this is the only thing we're answering in this evening's presentation is for you to get this answer. Is do I pay taxes now or do I pay taxes later? And it's a simple mathematic equation. So maybe a better question that you guys should ask is, do I want to pay taxes on $1 million now or let it compound a few years later and pay taxes on 2 million later? So this is the way it works. And here's the crazy thing about this. When we look at Tom and Mary's overall tax liability, there's really no difference in the balances of the IRA when they pay the taxes now or later. So I want you to walk through that math a little bit on this. So if we pay the taxes now, we have our $1 million current IRA balance, and we take, let's say we're assuming a 30% tax bracket, and we pay those taxes now. So we pay the $300,000. That leaves $700,000 to compound. And again, we use the simple math of the rule of 72. So if we follow that at 6% for 12 years, that $700,000 will double to $1.4 million 12 years into the future. Now, if we pay the taxes later, we have the $1 million. The $1 million is going to grow at 6%. That doubles 12 years into the future to $2 million. But then we want to pay the 30% tax on it, and it's $600,000 we pay at that point. You subtract that from the 2 million, and voila, you are at 1.4 million. So whether you pay the taxes now or you pay the taxes later, it doesn't make any difference from the account balance. You still end up with 1.4 million at a 30% tax rate. And keep in mind, these numbers that I'm talking about tonight are as if tax rates do not change in the future. I don't know if you believe that or not, that's actually going to be a reality for you. But even if they don't change, you'll still see the power of what these things do, these RMDs do to you, to many of you, and why you would want to pay the taxes now. So the question might be, well, Steve, what's the advantage to converting to a Roth IRA? All things being equal, why else would I want to convert to convert? So what's the advantage to convert into a Roth IRA? Well, a Roth IRA removes the compounding costs triggered by required minimum distributions. If you don't start taking withdrawals and figure out a way to pay the tax now, then you're going to be forced to pay the tax on the government schedule starting at either at age 73 if you're born before January 1st of 60, or it's age 75 if you're born after January 1st, 1960. That's the cutoff currently anyways, with legislation due to the Secure Act 2.0. So the required minimum distributions are going to be forced out, and you pay a serious penalty if you do not. And RMDs cause 3 main chain reactions. We used to have this as 6 major chain reactions, but we kind of broke them, they're all very similar. So we broke them down to 3 to make it very simple. The first one, this is taxes and the cost from your lifetime distributions. The second one is something called income-related monthly adjustment amount, or IRMA for short. And again, that is not my grandma. And then this is huge, and we're going to spend more time on that. And then the third one is heirs distributions. So we're going to start with lifetime distributions. We're going to go back to Tom and Mary. We're going to assume they have $120,000 a year of taxable income, or adjusted gross income, AGI, and it's increasing 3% annually, putting them in the 22% tax bracket. Pretty simple. Now, one of the great things that I get to do in this industry, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've surrounded myself with incredible mentors, and I get the opportunity as an independent to speak with pretty much anyone I want. And it was just a few weeks ago, I was talking with someone who turns out to be an absolutely brilliant economist. And it's one of those persons, you talk to them and you're listening to them, and it's just like, a lot of the things are going over your head because they're so smart, but you listen to the few of the things and they're like, man, they got some gems in there. And the cool thing is we started, talking about these, specific conversations. And I find out later that this gentleman was part of the one of the teams that was bidding on the Buffalo Bills when they were for sale. That's a legitimate elite level advisor in this industry. He managed several $billion to be a VP at Fidelity. And I get to, pick his brain and ask him all these questions. And I get to learn from this so that I can not only educate myself and my family, our plans, but also to be able to share with all of our clients as well. And one of these things we're talking about in regards to lifetime distributions is when we take a look at this and we start at age 60 at $120,000, so that 10 grand a month. And we, so starting at $120,000 a year, we can see based on that 3% progression by age 95, the income now is up to $338,000 a year of annual income, which then has them in a 24% bracket. Now, if you look down in the lower line, because we had the IRA and they chose not to do a conversion at 75, they're going to then have to start taking required minimum distributions. So at a 6% growth on their $1 million compounding at age 75, starting with the RMDs at age 75, they'd have to take out $97,000 a year, compounding, increasing. Now, if we continue taking RMDs up to age 95, now they're taking out $269,000 a year. But remember, this is on top of the $120,000 a year, which is also increasing at 3% every single year. So when we kind of put everything together, their income goes from $284,000 a year all the way down to $607,000 a year, and it continues increasing the rest of their life from then on. Now, if we just look at the income tax level increases down at the bottom, we can see they go from a 22% tax bracket, and then they go around 65 to 75, they go to 24, all the way to a 35% tax bracket at 95. So this is often the result of those increasing taxes from the RMDs. And the cumulative tax from these RMDs increase is $922,000 from age 75 to age 95. Just that 20-year window is $1 million. This is just from RMDs alone, which once again, we're not trying to solve for the motorhome or the swimming pool in this conversation. We are simply looking at the consequences on that $1 million IRA they have now at age 60. So they can make one decision. Not, do I change advisors? Do I have someone manage all the rest of my money? Do I need to do this? No, it is one simple decision. Do I pay the taxes now in a controlled manner, my plan, or do I run with the IRS's plan? In addition, because here's some bigger issues here, is up to 85% of Social Security becomes taxable. These are known as transfers. A transfer is when money leaves your personal economy either unknowingly or unnecessarily. Now, when I lose money in the stock market, it can and normally does come back. Would you all agree with that? I'm sure you probably all would believe in that sentiment, right? But when I lose money to taxes, when I lose money to transfers, that money leaves my economy. It's gone forever, and it's not only gone forever. I lose all of the opportunity and the cost value that goes along with that as well, and that's for generations that's gone because I didn't know, because someone didn't explain it to me, because I wasn't ready. I didn't know. I didn't educate myself. All those things, right? You guys have done the job of saving the money. You should be relying on a team of experts that are coming alongside of you and helping you and guiding you and giving you all of your math and giving you all your answers and making sure that you're prepared when these things come. If you're not, my question is, what are you paying for? It's a problem in our industry that we've seen for years. I've personally interviewed well over 25,000 people over the last 3.5 years going through webinars just like this. And it's amazing. It's almost like financial malpractice that's going on out here. So we want to understand how these thresholds work and these taxable income when it comes to provisional income. Essentially, the way it works is your income, if your income is below $32,000, 0% is taxed. $32,000 to $40,000, 50% of your Social Security is taxed, and then anything over $44,000, 85% of this tax. If you're single, it's $25,000 and $34,000. Those are the different thresholds for you, because they're a little bit lower, of course, if you're single. Now, this is taxed after all of your standard deductions and everything else that kind of goes along with it, with any write-offs that you have. But as a general rule of thumb, once your total income exceeds $50,000 as a single person or $75,000 joint, you are almost guaranteed to be taxed on 85% of your Social Security income. So your RMD does increase the amount that you're being taxed on your Social Security as well. And all of this falls under that chain reaction of taxes on your lifetime distributions. Now, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research, among couples who retired together, about 6 in 10, come on. About 6 in 10 wives and about 4 in 10 husbands will become a surviving spouse at some point in their lives. One of the others is going to pass away. Now, on average, if a female, she's then going to spend about 12 years in widowhood, and the survivors are male. It's typically 9 to 10 years in widowhood. So let's go back to Tom and Mary. All right. There's a 43% chance that Tom and Mary could each reach age 95. It's actually a 20% chance that they could reach age 100 because more and more people are living longer. And you all know this. We were out with clients last night, and Kathy's 77 years old, and she looks like she's 52. I mean, she said 77 is the new 50. And I'm like, that's what I told my mother-in-law who just turned 70. I'm 50. I don't think I look 50. At least I hope I don't. I try not to, right? I mean, there's a real, scientific, a purpose behind that. Modern medicine, changing diets and habits, environments that we've understand, the things that we know from science. Longevity is a major, major issue because it enhances all of these other chain reactions on top of it. Because here's the problem. At 75, their base income is $187,000, which had them in the 22% marginal tax bracket. Now, then remember, they had the RMDs kick in then, and then the RMDs were $97,000 added to their base income. This takes them up to $284,000, and this pushes them into the 24% tax bracket. Then, if at some point in the future, one of them becomes a single taxpayer, that 24% tax bracket now jumps to 35% tax bracket. So this is one difference, and it can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars difference over the lifetime of those distributions. This is called the widow's tax. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but we have a whole conversation about widow's tax and what happens to, it's unfortunate, but it's a reality. Because when we look at lifetime distributions, if it's the same income, but we're in worse brackets, how is that a good benefit? And then we take a look at the second of these three chain reactions, moving on. IRMA penalties, income related monthly adjustment amount. That's what the government called this. So once again, this is deducted from your Social Security check. You don't even have the option of keeping it and not giving it to them, right? They're just going to come in and grab it just like they do Medicare, right? Now, why? Because this is a Medicare tax, if you would. Now, if your income is 106 single or 200, this is tier 1, 212 married filing jointly, then you just pay $185 for your Part B, and there's nothing for your Part D. No cost associated with it. Obviously, if you have a Part D plan, there's a cost to it. If you have a Medicare Advantage or a Medicare supplement, it has a cost to it. But this is just original. I'm talking original Medicare and nothing else. And if you guys need any questions about Medicare, we were one of the Medicare's #1 GAs for about 5 years running. So we've been doing it for a very, very, very long time at a high level. So if you need any questions, we got those answers for you without any selling. So 106,000 single, 212,000 if I'm married filing jointly. Okay. The difference in the income brackets are for tier 1 is that, that's the standard. This is where a lot of people want to be at. But what if we look and we go into tier 2? Because next ones are tiers 2 through 6. This is what tier 2 looks like. We can start to get into these IRMA thresholds. And between 106 and 133 single, 212, 266 married, all of a sudden you now pay $87.70 a month per person if you're tiered in $13.70 per person for Part D. At tier 3, the income bracket changes up to 167, 133 to 167, 266 to 334. Now you're paying an additional $220 times 2 if you're married, obviously, and plus another $35.30 for Part D. Tier 4, this goes 167 to 200, 334 to 400. You're paying an additional, basically another $445, almost $4,300 more per year for that, plus another $700, $800 for your Part D. Tier 5, $485 a month, $78 for your Part D. Tier 6, and some of you might be like, I'm never going to make this much money. Look at Tom and Mary. My goodness. Now, Tom and Mary fall into tier 3 at that point. This is your $284,000 of modified adjustment gross income. This is what it looks like. So they're paying the $185 plus they're paying the additional $220 a month. Okay. So of the two of them, that's $440 a month. That's $5,200 extra a year. Additional transfers leaving their economy. Now, I assume that you folks worked hard to set aside and grow your lifetime income and your lifetime savings. We simply here at Wisdom Financial believe that is all your money. And it is our desire to help you keep as much of it inside of your personal economy as mathematically possible. Spend more while you're here, leave more to your heirs, and hopefully tax advantage position when you're not. We say all the time that we're not salespeople because we are independent. So I will stand here all day long and try to sell you that you deserve to keep more of your own money. Okay. I'm all for paying taxes, but I'm not for paying stupid taxes. That doesn't really make any sense. So let's move back to Tom and Mary here. You see our friends, and as their income increases over time, their IRMA tiers increase. But there's another problem. So this starts at age 75, around $5,000 a year. And based on their income, increases. Let me go back for a second. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. Increases to $17,000 a year. That's incredible. But here's the bigger issue. If we go, now I can go to the next slide. If we go back 10 years to 2015, that $5,300 on this sliding scale was about $3,200. IRMA charges, folks, are currently increasing annually at a clip of about 6.5%. We're just showing 6% annually here. So from age 60 to 75, IRMA charges are going to continue increasing. So by the time that they reach age 75, what would have been $5,300 a year annually is now going to start out at about $13,000 a year annually. So their inflation-adjusted IRMA charges just continue to increase by age 95. It's $511,000 that they will have paid with inflation adjustment on their IRMA charges. That's $511,000 that left their economy and their kids' economy and their grandkids and all of it. Again, it's your money. We want to teach you how to put this money back in your pockets and keep this money and grow it and pass it on and help your legacy, help your legacy. That's how we serve, is we teach you the math and we help you make sure that these numbers are right for you. Because if it's not right, you shouldn't convert. Don't listen to the other people that are trying to sell you that everybody should convert. It's not true. But it gets worse. But there's more. It gets worse. They didn't just lose the $511,000. They also lost the opportunity to earn money on those dollars. And economists have a very nice name for this. This is called lost opportunity costs. That money leaves their economy forever, never comes back. And this isn't doom and gloom because this has nothing to do with the market. So on the money that they were going to pay for IRMA, they've been able to contribute or continue earnings. On the money that they were paying for IRMA, had they been able to continue earning 6% in that money, they would have had an additional $401,000 at 95. So add that to the 511, and that's what they're missing out on. Only at 6%. So that's money that they don't have because the charges they did pay, because their income went up and because they didn't convert their IRA to a Roth IRA. So all combined, this was a $912,000 mistake if they did not convert. Their money, their legacy's money, whoever's money, theirs. That's what it costs. And that's just on Tom and Mary with their situation. Everybody's different. Moving on to the third major chain reaction here is your heirs distributions. So as your IRA continues to grow, your required minimum distribution continues increasing every single year. And at some point around 85-ish, the increase is going to exceed the growth on the account. So it's going to pull your lifetime value of your account account down. In this case, Tom and Mary down to $3 million at 95. The Secure Act now forces most heirs to liquidate the IRA if they're not spousal within 10 years. So the inherited IRA, the kids are going to be receiving the IRA and they're taxed at top marginal rates. This is what's going to happen to them, right? They lose all control. There is no control and there is no efficiency. Massive, massive tax inefficiency when the heirs and now you might be like, screw it, I'm dead. Doesn't make a difference. They can deal with it. If that's really how you treat your money, why not just go burn it now? Because that's what's going to happen in the future. And I know you guys don't, that's not how you treat it. You guys have an emotional connection to it that we don't have. We have a mathematic logic connection. You have to feel this pain and say, I want to solve it, or find out if I need to solve it. That's the whole point of this conversation, is understanding what these chain reactions actually are going to do to you. So the Secure Act forces those out. It's extremely inefficient. Where's my chain reaction? RMDs happen every single year. This is what the chain reaction looks like. RMDs increase each year, increasing your income, which increases your lifetime distributions and your taxable distributions. This drives the IRMA charges higher, and then the taxes to your heirs, the third chain reaction. So you can see it just gets uglier and uglier and uglier, the more money that you can receive in the form of RMDs, the more taxes that you're going to pay. Again, this conversion, this conversation that we're having, that we are suggesting, is that you only solves one thing in your retirement distribution planning, only one thing. Again, this is not about the motorhomes and the lifestyle and the travel. This is just your IRA dollars, your tax deferred dollars, but it will most likely be the most expensive thing for the mass majority of Americans. And there's really only two choices. And the best part of that, like I said, is your math makes it a very, very simple decision. So let's just assume that if a healthcare specialist told you that they could cure whatever health ailment that you had, but you had to pay them up front due to, they just didn't accept insurance. Would you pay them? I want to hear in chat. If you had a health ailment and you knew that these people could fix you, would you pay it up front? How many of you would? I know I would. I'm going in for a heart procedure tomorrow because I'm trying to get it taken care of. This is just some basic logic and probably even simpler math from that. Is your math is your math. We simply suggest that you do your math and know your answers. And the advisor, like that I was talking about earlier, that I mentioned earlier, the expert's expert, when I asked him what he was, really good at, he told me helping people solve their greatest financial math puzzles, which I thought was a brilliant way of answering that, because that's truly what happens is everybody has these issues and these problems. Everybody's unique. Their DNA, their thumbprint is unique financially. How cool to be able to look at anyone, no matter whether they've got 50,000 or 50 million or $50 trillion, and be able to help them do that mathematically and logically and reasonably. Everybody loves their money, right? But they don't often know who to trust. 2 + 2 = 4. Does that, does anyone disagree with that math? Is anyone perhaps experiencing any anxiety when I say 2 + 2 = 4? Of course not. Why? Because it's math, right? Math has no emotions. It's just math. We say, trust math. Then your decision is simple and it's easy and it's painless and it's emotionless. So for those of you that have never done your math and not 100% sure of your math, let's remedy that night. And so what we're going to do is we're going to share you the opportunity for you to do just that. Now, I'm going to share a different link here in a second, and that's going to give you the access to 30 minutes of our time that we're going to give you on a complimentary basis. That 30 minutes is not you becoming a client. You'd probably only take about 15, 20 minutes. We're going to get 5 or 6 pieces of information, and we're going to run your Roth blueprint. You're going to see what it looks like tonight. So anyone that is here in attendance, you're going to receive that opportunity. Let me just pop that up here. And I'll pin that one to the top as well. Yeah, it's pinned up top. It just says accept. Oops, it says accept offer. So it's just 30 minutes, folks. It's not. You're not going to be, sharing any documents. They don't need to know your total net worth. You're going to be meeting with our planning team. They don't need to know how many kids you have, unless you want, to actually know your math, for them to include what converting versus non-converting does to your legacy. Or, they don't need to know that. What your retirement plans look like, they don't need to know any of that stuff. Just, they're going to gather some very, very basic information. And then all you need is your IRA balance. You need your IRA balance, your income, your Social Security, and that's about it, and age. And within about 3 minutes, you will have a CPA-ready strategic Roth blueprint that you will have gift. I will show you what it looks like at the end. It's a very simple 6-page report that you get to keep and do with what you please. So I got to move on to this one. Those of you that take us up on that, enjoy. So if a Roth IRA reduces or eliminates the 3 major chain reactions, here is the real question. What's in your way, right? This is what most tell me they want to know, right? So stay with me here. Takes a little bit more notes here for any revelations or questions, right? We're here to answer any questions that you have. So Little bit again, if you were live at one of our seminars, you'd be able to raise your hand and do this, but play with me at home if you would. So if you would just, kind of like put a thumbs up or something like that in the chat. If any of you have ever been to Europe, again, I would say raise your hands if you were with me in public. Leave your hands up. Now, if those of you that have been to Europe, how many of you have been to Italy? Keep your hands up or say that you've been to Italy. Now, those of you that went to Italy, leave your hands up. If you were in Italy, how many of you went to the beautiful city of Florence? Again, keep your hands up. All right. Now, if you went to the beautiful city of Florence, those of you that still have your hands up, how many of you, while you were in Florence, happened to see the statue of David? I just want to see it in the chat. How many people said this thing is a magnificent? I mean, it's magnificent, right? First time I saw it, I mean, it's incredible. Massive, 17-foot high, all carved out of a single chunk of rock. Now, that chunk of rock was actually named Goliath, as they wanted to carve the statue of Goliath from David and Goliath. And so it sat basically for about a century in a rock quarry in Florence, and a couple other sculptors tried to work on it. Now, in the 1450s, I think, and when it was, there were some famous sculptors. They gave up on it because it was just too brutal, and they were just too hard for them to work with. Until this one artist showed up by the name of Michelangelo. And Michelangelo from 1502 to 1505 spent 3 years basically around the clock, barely ever left the place, basically slept there, ate there, hardly changed clothes. He was a mess. And he worked on the statue nonstop to create what is now the statue of David. Now, according to legend, the Pope at the time approached Michelangelo regarding his genius in carving the David, and he just said this: "How did you do that? It's so incredible." My Italian's not very good, right? But what was the secret? And Michelangelo simply replied and said, "It's real simple. I just remove everything that is not David." So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about removing the conversion negatives and eliminating the things that you can control. So what we found over the years is that there are three main reasons why people haven't already converted. Number one is there's their out-of-pocket costs. Where are they going to convert from? Right? I have most of my money in my IRA. What am I going to, where am I going to get the extra money to pay the taxes? Number two is the fear of jumping into higher tax brackets and paying more of taxes on that. And number three is what's called the sequence of returns risk. So let's first talk about the out-of-pocket costs. This is when the conversion tax costs exceed available cash reserves. So retiree studies found that most of us typically have around 4 to 7% of our retirement wealth in liquid form. Studies show that Americans aged 55 and older, that the median retirement account size is $171,667. And the liquid savings in retirement is about $10,467. So that equates to a liquid savings ratio of about 6.1%. Now, obviously, everybody's different, right? But for the cost of somewhere between 22 to 32% to do a conversion, that creates a little bit of a problem. The second thing, higher tax brackets. So what we have here in our tax code is that we have what's called a marginal tax bracket. So just like the graduated cylinder in chemistry classes, you pour it up, it kind of fills up and hits all the different lines. It's the same exact thing here in the United States with our taxes. Is as you fill up each bracket, you don't get to you go to a tax bracket like 32% and pay 32% on 100% of your money, right? You pay a little bit for each bracket as you fill it up. So the first 23,850 of taxable income, that is taxed at 10%. The next 23,851 and 96,950, that's going to be taxed at 12% level. Even though you had maybe 23 taxed at the 10% level, and the 22%, the next 100,000 is taxed at 22%. And then the next 180, yep. Oh, the calendar's not working? Okay. Okay. Can you hold on just a second? Actually, Jeff, why don't you talk about our wonderful tax bracket and for a second, because you're more. No. That's great. And I replaced that offer. It should have been a little pop out. Say, can someone check that? And Jeff, can you watch um, the chat and make sure that's working for me, if you would please? I think that might actually do an hour, but it's still 30 minutes. So we don't, you just don't need that much time to do the math, which is cool. And again, I want to make sure we're clear on this. You guys are not becoming our clients by going through this 30. You're just getting math and a report, and that's it. There isn't anything else. All right. So there is nothing to buy. So marginal tax brackets. All right. So let's say that we're at, and this is how we have to solve for the problem is we do something called marginal tax bracket management. And so what we want to do is, let's say if you have $100,000 of income and you want to remain in the 24% tax bracket. So 24% tax bracket for a married couple filing jointly is $394,000. So if they already have, is this going to work now? Let's see. Yes. So if they already have $100,000 taxable income, that means you have $294,600 of additional income that we can fill up that tax bracket with, meaning we could do the conversion with that $294,600 in that year, and we're still inside of that 24% tax bracket. That's important to keep inside of that. That's why we're filling that all the way up, right? And it's important for that because that's called marginal tax bracket management. Our tactical Roth blueprint automatically does this marginal tax bracket management for you. Now, that's not what you're getting in the report. A tactical Roth blueprint is a deeper conversation, really only designed for the serious of the serious. When you see the math and you want to solve the problem, that's where the tactical blueprint will come into play. The third reason that people aren't already converted typically is something called sequence of returns risk. Now, you may have heard this in many different ways. Typically, it's spun more to maybe try to sell things. We're not selling anything, right? This is just, are we going to pay the taxes or are we not going to pay the taxes? So let me explain it this way, all right? Let's say over the next 2 years, in the first year, you have a market that's down 20%, all right? So just very, very, very basic math that we have to deal with, right? And then in year 2, the market goes up 20%. So you go down 20% in year 1, you go up 20% in year 2. What is your average rate of return? Can anybody guess what the average rate of return is? It is 0, just like my fingers are showing you. Because negative 20 plus positive 20, 0. Well, if the average rate of return is 0, then why does $1,000 that we have going through this process actually end up and being reduced to $960? So let's chunk this down a little bit so we get it. It's important to understand this. So we're starting with $1,000. We go down 20%. $200,000 comes off. Now we're at $800 is our new account balance, down to $800. So then the next year, market goes up 20%. So we go back to $1,000, right? Anyone disagree with that math? You should, because that's wrong, because we're only getting 20% of the 800, which is $160. So now we're left with the 960. So if the count's down 20%, you actually need 25% increase, 800 plus 25%, just to get back to your 1,000. That's not a normal occurrence, although we did just receive that occurrence here a few years ago from 22 to 23. It's just not normal. So now we're going to show you a little bit different example. Okay. Now we have a 50% decrease. So the steeper the fall, the harder the climb back out. Because in order for us to get back to even, we have to get 100% rate of return just to get back to even. Losses hurt more than gains help. I'm not saying don't have money at risk. What I'm saying is don't have your money that you're converting at risk. We established this. Losses hurt more than gains help. But what about the 4% rule? Because we're talking about managing against volatility and losses. So a lot of people basically understand, at least vaguely they understand the 4% rule. But remember, the 4% rule was designed for a 30 to 35 year period. But most think of it as a way of protecting against losses, and that's in error. So Jeff, can you just share, maybe give us some of the 4% rule in a nutshell? That's what we're looking at, right? Folks, you can't continue to use old world solutions to solve new world problems. So we're here tonight to talk about solving the new world problem. So let's start talking about doing the math. So you see what this looks like. We understand the issues and we understand the chain reactions. Now let's see them actually in work and what happens. So we're going to take a look at two different other clients, Abigail and Melinda. They each have $1 million in their IRA, and they decide to use the 4% rule. So they put 40% in bond funds and 60% in stocks. Probably a lot of you have a very similar portfolio mix currently, maybe 70-30, maybe 80-20, but in essence, this is a very, very similar conversation. Now, what they want to do is they decided they want to convert $200,000 a year. So, and they're converting it to a Roth. And so I'm moving it from IRA to Roth IRA. So what I do is I move my money from my right pocket and I put it in my left pocket, but that left pocket is different. In between those pockets, I got to pay taxes, okay, when I'm doing a conversion. So Abigail, when she's converting, she does so in a stable market. So she averages a 6% rate of return, has 7 years of consecutive growth, 5, 4, 6, 5, 8, 7, 7. You divide those returns by 7 years and add them up. It's going to get you an average rate of return of 6%. Now, Melinda, on the other hand, she's going to convert during a volatile market. She suffers 2 years of deep losses, -31, -14%, followed by 5 years of solid growth. But she also averages a 6% rate of return. So the key thing we're focusing on is they both average, just like earlier when we talked about, if we do the $1 million, $2 million, we got 1.4 million. In this situation, they both averaged 6%. They both wanted to convert from an IRA to a Roth IRA at $200,000 a year. So Abigail has her $1 million. She's going to decide to convert the $200,000. So she pays 24% tax. Now we're just talking about federal tax, remind you, which is $48,000. She does that. $152,000 ends up in the Roth IRA, $800,000 left in the IRA. So we have 800,000 with 152 in the Roth, and the market was up 5%. Well, as we show here over the left-hand side here, this gets applied to both accounts. So it's plus 40 on the IRA side and plus $700 or $7,600 gain on the Roth side. So when you add those dollars up in the next year, we have 840,000 in the IRA because the gain and 159.6 in the Roth. Well, then we get a 4% gain. And we continue to the next year, right? We're going to add 25,600 to the IRA and $12,464 to the Roth interest. We continue to the next year, 6% gain, then a 5, then an 8, then a 7, then another 7. And now we're fully converted. And we average a 6% rate of return. That's just the math. No anxiety, no emotions, no stress, okay? You have no idea how important that can be, having a stress-free retirement. I can tell you the couples that we were sitting, the two couples that we were sitting with last night, and how much fun we had together at a dinner, because they have no fear and they have no stress. Now, we then take a look at Melinda's situation. She's going to do the same thing, but she's converting in a volatile market, also getting 6%. So that $200,000, she pays her $48,000 in taxes. $152,000 goes in the Roth. just like Abigail, same thing. But she's in a volatile market. So the first year she suffers a negative 31% loss. And now we trim $248,000 off of our IRA and negative $47,000 off of her Roth. Are you feeling that? That's just 1 year. Next year she suffers a 14% loss. And then she has the assumed tax rate for both of them is 24% is the conversion. Yep. Takes a 14% loss. And then she gets some solid gains, right? 16% gain, big, huge year, 35% gain, 12% gain, 13. And her last year, she gets 11. She also averages 6% average rate of return. But what's troubling is after only 7 years, Melinda has $150,000 less in her Roth account than Abigail. So you have to understand something. Sequence of returns is magnified during the conversion period. The 4% rule was over 30 to 35 years, not a small, tiny little window. We also have what we talked about earlier in one of the questions that was asked before we get started tonight is our IRA recharacterization and Roth conversions. So before 2018, recharacterization served as kind of like an undo button for Roth conversions, a mulligan, if you would, for the golf fans, in the audience. But investors could undo those conversions within 21 months of their investment if it lost value, right? So we could go, oops, didn't mean to do that conversion. I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo that. Now, we lost that opportunity to do that. So that undo button was eliminated as of January 1st, 2018 by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And it's like, oh, okay, because Melinda, when she lost 31%, right? Back in the day, we could have just flipped that around and recharacterized back to our IRA and wait just for another day. This undo button doesn't work anymore. Once you convert funds, the decision is irreversible. It's just like taking Social Security. Once I choose Social Security, it's done. I keep that forever. Forever and ever. On the other side, right, you have to understand that because we can't do this, when this volatility happens during the conversion period, it needs to be crystal clear. You need to understand this because what happens is we create something that's called phantom gains. Have you guys ever heard phantom gains before? Phantom gains is where when you pay taxes on money you no longer have. Think about that. Money's not yours anymore. Doesn't exist even in the sphere of money, of your money. It's gone. Right? And be like, well, I didn't cash my account out. It doesn't make a difference. You still got to pay on that. So going back to Melinda, she converted from 200,000 to from the IRA to the Roth, had the 31% loss. That's $62,000 in losses. That basically is taxes that she paid on that $200,000 or $62,000 of income. She has to pay taxes on that no longer exist. So during 1 year, she paid taxes on $62,000 of money that's no longer even in the world. That's phantom gains tax problem, which is caused by this sequence of returns problem. So once again, it is irreversible. You cannot undo it. And you simply cannot apply a rule that's designed for a 30 to 35 year time period. You can't apply that math during a shorter window of a conversion time. So avoiding losses during conversion is absolutely the most important thing that you can do, outside of finding out if it even makes sense to do it in general. So let's start solving this problem together. What does history teach us? There was a study done by the Milevsky study between 1970 and 2020. And here's basically the summary of that study. 15% of the months between in that 50-year period of time, the market lost more than 3%, 15% of the time. Another 15% of the months, the market gained more than 5%. And then the remaining 70% of the months, it was somewhere between those points, somewhere floating between -3 and +5%. So here's the question. Would you hedge your bets by sacrificing the best 15 months of monthly returns for protection from the worst 15 months of monthly returns? This is called hedging. So in other words, would you rather have protected growth with a hedge during this period, or would you rather be fully exposed? Pretty simple question. This is where the math comes into it. So when we did the math on this from 1970, $1,000 through 2019 during the 50 years would have grown to $181,720,000. That's 100% exposed to both sides of the market. Full exposure. There's nothing safe in that conversation. It's 100% at risk. Then we looked at the protected growth by hedging it and giving up the top 15% gains for protecting the worst 15% losses. And that $1,000 grew to $529,250. I want you to look at that for a second. It's a difference of 291%. 291% greater by being safe. Fully exposed versus fully protected. Modest gains that never suffer a loss will always outperform a volatile market. Always. This is what we call the power of zero. Now, in order to do this, in order for Abigail and Melinda to make it through this conversion period without experiencing any of these sequence of returns risk, we simply turn to a product called a simplified accumulation annuity. A simplified accumulation annuity allows us to complete a conversion over maybe a 5 to 10 year period of time with no out-of-pocket costs, without jumping into any higher tax brackets unless we want to, and no sequence of returns risk. So now you can't just use any annuity to accomplish this. This is important to understand. There's 737 annuity carriers that exist out there in the market. There's only 6 of them are what we call Roth friendly. These accounts allow us to seamlessly do the conversion from an IRA to a Roth IRA without jumping over the tax bracket or jumping into a higher tax bracket. It is called a Roth friendly account. Of the 6 that are Roth friendly, only 4 meet our due diligence performance criteria. We are incredibly detailed when we looked at these things. If this is not something that we would utilize for ourselves, for our families, for any of our clients, we would never recommend it to anyone else. So when you have a Roth blueprint of your own, we accomplish what you're all hoping to see, which is your math, your unique math, simplified. And it is designed to do 3 things and 3 things only on one part of your retirement plan. First thing is to complete the conversion from your IRA to a Roth IRA with no out-of-pocket costs to you. The second thing is doing so without jumping into higher tax brackets. So if you're in a 24% tax bracket, when we start, we normally don't want to jump above that 24% tax bracket during the conversion process, again, unless we want to. And lastly, we need to be able to accomplish all of this without any risk. So the sequence of returns risk is wiped off of the table. So do you remember when we followed Tom and Mary earlier and their $1 million at age 95 was $3 million taxable, getting handed off to the kids? Let's take a look at that. What it would look like if we did the Roth conversion using our proprietary tactical Roth blueprint. So once again, without the RMDs, the account value is going to grow to a much larger size, and it's tax-free versus taxable. So $3 million taxable versus $7.5 million tax-free. using our proprietary tactical Roth blueprint process. Folks, if this was you, which would you prefer? Do you know your math this intimately? And lastly, what's stopping you if you don't? Because this is the difference. Remember I talked about earlier when I talked about lifetime wealth value? This is the difference in their lifetime wealth value. Not converting that in an appropriate way, in the most optimal way, is them making a $3.5 million mistake. A $3.5 million mistake. Some of you, it's a $723,000 mistake. Some of you, it's a $85,000 mistake. Some of you, it makes no sense to do. You shouldn't do it. We believe that you should have that math. So again, in that 30-minute conversation, this is the process. It's very, very simple. Yep. I think it's 47, 48, 47, and let's say 48%. 100% wanted to, right? When they started into it, get the IRS out of my pocketbook. That's what they all tell me, right? And I say, okay, well, does it make sense to get the IRS out of your pocket right now? Yes or no? So here's the process. It's 30 minutes. We give you, there's 3 objectives. Number 1 is you're going to receive your baseline. Baseline is like I shared with you earlier with Tom and Mary, no conversion. This is just what you look at. You keep on trucking and keep on doing what you're doing right now. The second checkpoint is going to be your blueprint. This is just going to show you if you do convert optimally, what that looks like to you. And then third is you'll be able to compare. It is literally a side-by-side comparison of conversion to no conversion, and then what's the difference? And you'll be able to see all of the math. And it's going to look something exactly like, hold on. This 6, I'll blow it up a little bit here. This is what you're going to get. It's going to show you your break evens and show your conversion. This is an example. Obviously, a hypothetical. It's amazing, right, Jeff? All of our clients are named Tom and Mary. We've really carved out that niche in the industry, folks. So it's pretty impressive. We look at the difference in the lifetime trajectory, and if you look down here, this is the baseline. Lifetime distributions. There's no difference there. Why would there be, right? But when you look at the actual IRMA penalties, they're saving $200,000 in IRMA penalties. Their legacy distribution is 2.24. Their taxes on legacy is I mean, this is crazy, right? Their lifetime wealth is 2.12 million. So this client would have been making a $2 million plus mistake. And the difference is positive 61% greater mistake. Do you want your math? That's a pretty simple question. And if you don't want your math, that's great, right? But that's the opportunity that you all have with that now. We also decided that what we would do is, because we had so many people that registered this evening, those of you that stay with us to the end, I told you that I would offer offer a nice little surprise for you. Well, here it is. Normally, what we do is when we do what we're showing right here, this is the strategic Roth blueprint. This is your take home. This is what you're going to get in that half an hour discussion. Okay. And you're going to have your math. Do with it what you will. Now, for the next 5 people that enroll for our tactical conversation, and again, a tactical conversation would be someone who wants to solve and create the most optimal situation. Again, not becoming a client, it's just actually going deeper and getting into the process of utilizing the different strategies and tools so that you can see exactly how it works specifically for you and your tax deferred dollars. Now we normally do charge $2,500 to $5,000 to do these because it's our team. It's about somewhere anywhere from 7 to 12 hours that they have to contribute for that, right? So there's a cost associated with that. So we and again, there's nobody that does it better in the industry. We'll put our math against anybody. So that strategic conversation doesn't cost a thing. Tactical, usually 2,500 to 5,000, but for the first 5 that accept that offer, they will receive that on a complimentary basis. And then all of you, everyone else that if you miss that 5 cutoff, you'll get 50% off of that. And if you happen to become a client of ours, we do rebate that over the first year. Refers to that. Is that how did I say that right, Jeff? So I will share that here. I guess I have to call it something different here because the other button didn't work. Modern technology, y'all. Modern technology. All right. Now let's get to answering some questions. Let's see. So we'll go to Q&A first. Oh, this is simple. Jeff, does it make sense to do a lump sum conversion in 1 year over 3 to 4 years? My age is 61. My wife is 63. They're both retired. So, Steve, the suggestion would be, I would take Jeff up on the and the planning team on that 30-minute call and get your math on that. Though it's pretty simple. All right, so let's get to some more Q&A. Joseph Farley, it said it can never be paid back. I'm not sure what that was. Never be paid back. I'm not sure what that was, Joseph Farley. And then Steve said there's talk already to increase retirement age. I'm 50. I mean, I could see them maybe doing some sort of what do you call it? Not rearrangement, but what's the title, Jeff? So, right. But I can see them pushing back from 67 to 70, right? Amy Wyckoff says, is there a cap income salary to be able to qualify for Roth conversion, i.e. you have to, if you have too high of a salary, are you unable to do Roth conversion? No, you're thinking about Roth contributions. I'm thinking that's what you're answering, Amy. Is that kind of what you're hearing, Jeff? It's Roth contributions on an annual base. You have to be gainfully employed. You can do 7,500 a year per person under 50, 8,500 after 50 with the catch up. Oh, never mind. Jeff answered that in text. No, there is no income cap. So long story short, conversions are totally different. It's just like we had a gentleman the other day, right? He's already at the top of the brackets because of all of his income, and the Roth still made a tremendous amount of sense. What was it? $2.5 million of positive benefit and value to not only him but also his legacy. And he's got a ton of cash, right? So it's certainly can be. Yeah. Yep. And that's why our proprietary system, allows you to do that at no out-of-pocket costs. Just try to get on this. Okay, that was when the link wasn't broken. Oh man. My Roth, same thing. Okay, I'll get those to you guys. Okay, it's working now. It's good. Pop-up work. Yep. Not 20. Now let's turn that. How much tax is she paying each year? I'm not sure. where we were at there. The percentage is great, but how many real dollars in tax is she paying? Not getting the complete picture. Oh, that was when you asked 24%. Okay. With an annuity, one usually has no control over the money. I'm not sure what type of annuity you're talking about there, Thompson. Again, of the 737 carriers, we willed it down. There's only 6 that are Roth friendly and only 4 that we would ever suggest to you. They work differently. That was a comment on the national debt. Yeah. Yeah. You're letting the insurance company do a good job of what they're doing there for you. Yeah, absolutely. Annuities are a tool, right? I mean, just like mutual funds and ETFs, and I mean, they all have positives and negatives. The difference is that we're talking about paying taxes or not paying taxes. That's it. And in regards to that time period, it's a short period of time. We can't be taking having 2 years of losses during that time period and expect to have be victorious. We just can't. It's just math. So we just eliminate that. And at the end, now all your money's tax free. Take it out of the annuity, do whatever you want with it. That's the only thing we're utilizing it for is the conversion. No, Thompson, we're not saying keep it in this vehicle for the rest of your life. It's just like, nope, this time period, this is what we're using. This is the tool, the strategy we're using. By doing so, it does this, and this for you, which just there isn't anything else that does it. I mean, I challenge you to show us the math of something that beats it. Didn't see the deeper dive 2,500 offer. I did see the income. Yeah, Jerry, it's the buttons were named differently because the first one was wrong. So I apologize about that. We'll know based off of those 3 different buttons which one you were going for. So don't worry about it. But I promise. What if I've been doing RMD for 8 years and my husband is 3 years from starting an RMD? Not sure what if I've been doing RMD? Perhaps you're talking about, would you still be able to do Roth conversions with that? I'm not, if you could be a little bit, SJ, if you could be a little bit more, maybe deeper with that question, might be easier to get that answer. And sometimes some of these questions, obviously, almost kind of come across as we're providing advice. We obviously do not do that on webinars, but we'll always say, schedule a time with us. Let's chat and go through all that stuff. Talk with experts. And by the way, I had mentioned good second and button. Good, perfect. Heidi asks, how do I feel about IULs? Well, I'm a huge fan of life insurance because you have guarantees. IULs, usually I would utilize that strategy as once if I have a 401k match, I want to take that free money first. But I only want to, yep. IUL is an indexed universal life insurance contract. It's built inside of the IRS code, and there's 3 different tax citations that are built into every one of these. Gives you that it's TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA. You can Google these things. It gives you the ability to grow your money tax free, access your money tax free, and transfer your transfer your money tax free. And it's the only vehicle that does that. It's the greatest secret in the IRS code, but they're not for everybody. So normally I would, if I'm going to utilize an IUL, I'm depending on the strategy I'm trying to, accomplish with. I'm going to take my free money from my 401k. I'm going to fully fund a Roth IRA, and then my remaining money over. Yeah, I'd stuff as much as I possibly can into those things because they're guaranteed, and 7%, 8% net of fees and taxes is a really, really good thing, especially in the future because it comes out tax exempt. So just like a Roth, when I distribute from a Roth or any sort of permanent life insurance contract, those distributions are tax exempt. It's tax free. It doesn't get means tested against Social Security. When I distribute out of an IRA, means tested potentially, right? But I'm also taxed the highest amount out of that bucket. The next bucket is a taxable bucket. This is your brokerage accounts or your selling of a house or something like that. Cost basis, right? I buy something for 100 grand, sell it for 120. I'm going to pay taxes, long-term gain taxes on the 20%. That can also be means tested when I distribute from that account because I show too much money. Tax-free municipal bonds, only thing in the IRS code that are tax-free. And again, when I distribute from that, I don't pay any taxes on it, but it can negatively affect my IRMA, as well as my Social Security can be double taxed with that as well. So IOLs are a great tool, a great strategy, especially if you're young and healthy and you start those things and keep with them. And like you're married, you'll be retired by the time you're 50. You'll have tax-free money that you can't outlive. Is your plan useful as far as going tax-free approach? Yeah, it's every tax-free is the way to be. Again, we're all about taxes, or I'm sorry, paying necessary taxes. I like roads and water and things of that nature, right? But paying stupid taxes, we just feel is really simple. When you start to compound that conversation, remember earlier when I was talking about the worst debt imaginable, you wouldn't sign that loan. You wouldn't cash that loan in with unknown terms and unknown taxes, but it's exactly what we do inside of these tax deferred vehicles is I'm not paying taxes today to pay taxes at some unknown tax rate for some unknown reason in the future. I wouldn't do that with other things in my life. Again, we didn't know that. Nobody taught us that. Maybe that's your only option. And hey, free money is free money, right? So we're not here saying don't ever utilize a 401k. We're just saying when we get to the certain time period in our retirement planning process, is we might want to look at converting those IRA and 401k assets when we can, and especially right now, obviously, when taxes are still on sale. It's a good time to be able to do that over the next 8 years and every single year, right? Is we plan, we then implement the plan, and then we get together every single year and we make sure we do all those things over again. And we evaluate and we look and we assess the situation and we want to make a simple plan, and then we're gonna take action, and then we're going to evaluate, and we just do that over and over and over and over again. And in doing so, you're going to end up having more money. It's going to be tax free. You're going to have much more enjoyable life, and your kids are going to love you even more when you're gone. They're going to put pictures of you above the mantle, right? So, absolutely, 100% our plan is useful for going tax free approach. Rob, if all these tax savings initiative you were sharing are in play now, won't that stymie the government's plan to pay down the debt with what they are banking on, thus be forced to make adjustments to recoup the tax revenue? Well, listen, okay, absolutely 100%. I mean, the ad you signed up for is avoid the ticking tax time bomb. There's a great book by a guy that doesn't have anything to do with financial services, whatsoever, other than the fact that he teaches us and trains us how to help be more tax advantage and tax efficient. There's a guy by the name of Ed Slott, write this book called The New Retirement Savings Tax Time Bomb. Just go get it from him. You can listen to it too, obviously, but dude's brilliant. And he'll tell you life insurance is the greatest secret in the IRS tax. That's straight out of that guy's mouth. But he now trains. It is a little depressing, but it's important, I think, to understand, right? Is rather than just taking my advice and Jeff's advice, right? Is you're actually kind of looking at it from the perspective of a tax professional, right? And I think that's the key behind that, because that's what he does. And now what he does is he trains us as advisors how to be tax efficient with that. But I think how I first read that, Rob, is that you find me so amazing that you think that I'm going to make a big dent in the $73 trillion that we have in the baby boomers. Let's just say have in IRA assets that I'm going to be able to make a dent to the federal government. I would listen. That's my plan. That's absolutely 100% my mission. And it's not because I hate the government. It's just because I love you guys more. I mean, I want people. I made a lot of bad mistakes financially when I was younger. I came into marriage with a bunch of debt. I've been in debt twice, actually three times technically, all for different reasons. The last two times, because I was taught how to do it properly and leverage it, it wasn't a problem, right? But I had to be taught that. And it's not taught to us when we're in elementary school. It's not taught to us in high school. I mean, heck, we pay and put ourselves into debt to go to higher education, and they don't teach us this stuff. I've been in this industry 20 years, and and just in the last 8 months, with the year with Jeff, I've learned more in the last year than I did the last 20 years. It's incredible. And the problem is that it's how the industry is built, right? You have to understand the financial services industry, folks. It is 100% a business that is designed for revenues and profits, and that's it. It's not built around you and I having, best interests. If you don't know what your best interests are, nobody's going to teach them to you. I mean, that's what we do, but I mean, most of us aren't like us, because most advisors focus 99% of the financial services industry focuses 100% on the accumulation side of the market, which is just building you and growing your assets to some dollar, big dollar amount, going up the mountain, the ascent phase. But now I got to get back down the mountain. And just like until you take 4%, right? Who's thrilled about taking 4% out of your $1 million, right? Oh, great. I got to get 40 grand a year on top of my $30,000 of Social Security. Woohoo, right? I mean, no, it's no fun. And actually it's 29,000, because of the 2.9% rule now. So we think it's BS. We think, I mean, me personally, I want to put Ken Fisher out of business. That dude manages $750 billion. But why do I want to put him out of business? Because he starts out his marketing by lying to the entire population of the United States. And it's okay with the federal government, because he's in bed with that, because understand the federal government and Wall Street, they're in bed together. That's why all the rules that are in FINRA and the SEC are designed around that, right? Understand that when you have a captive advisor, someone who works for an Edward Jones or maybe a Raymond James, Morgan Stanley, you name it, right? Fidelity, Schwab, those advisors understand that they're advisors of that firm. And that firm has a CEO who has a fiduciary duty to a board of directors and shareholders, not to you as the consumer, not to me as the consumer. This is why we left and went independent, because we had it. I mean, Jeff managed a couple $2 billion at Fidelity and left because they kept trying to force him to sell stuff that he didn't want to sell because it didn't make any sense. Best interests. Is it best interest? Just because it's the only thing that I can put in front of you, this is the best that I can give you, doesn't mean it's the best that is for you. And then if I don't educate you, and then if I don't say, hey, listen, you have a CPA, great. I need to talk to that CPA every single year. Raise of hands in the chat. How many of your advisors, financial advisors, meet with your accountant and your CPAs and money, whoever does your taxes every single year? Probably none of you. That's a violation of fiduciary duty from two people that are fiduciaries that aren't doing a fiduciary duty to you. How many other people? So we operate as a family CFO. We provide an entire team. Our job is to wrap our proverbial arms around you and help you be the best financial you that you can be. Logically, reasonably, no emotions. We're going to get, so if you always base that off, everything off of it's your money, you're the CEO of your assets. Every advisor that you bring on in the rest of your life is an employee of yours, period. You base that employee off of results and not relationship. You can grow great friendships. Friendships that we were with last night, great friends. We made plans to go down to, what's the name of that? Bardstown. We're going to go down yes. And we're going to go down and we're going to hit the Kentucky Derby next year. I'm thrilled. My wife can't wait to wear the crazy hat, right? And those are clients of ours. But that just didn't happen because we did a Roth conversion, right? I mean, Jeff's been managing their money for 25 years. So if you base things off of results first, the relationships can happen from there. But be the CEO of your assets, folks, and make sure that you own that and know whose money it is. Know what your fees are. Know what your inflation is going to look like. Because all the stuff inside of your Fidelity, all those calculators you use, Jeff, how many of them are legit calculators? right? And most of the ones that are inside of like your 401k accounts and stuff like that, they don't take inflation into account. They don't take taxes into account. They don't take losses into account. It's just, hey, you're going to go get 8% every single year the rest of your life. And that math doesn't work. So understand that the distribution, the decumulation phase of retirement plan, when I'm on my way down my mountain, and just like the analogy of climbing Mount Everest, the mass majority of people die on Everest on the way down, on the descent. And when you're in retirement distribution, you're on the descent phase. We want to help you be the Sherpas to get you down. Who cares if we get you up to the summit and you take, and you never get down to tell anybody about it? That's not the goal of climbing Mount Everest, right? You want to take the 360 selfie on top of the world and show everybody about it, right? I mean, heck, it took you 4.5 weeks to get up to the top of that thing. Now you got to get back down. And distribution phase, when you're utilizing accumulation phase strategies and tools, it just doesn't work. It doesn't mean that those strategies and tools are bad. It just means that they were good at one point and they're not earlier. When you're building a house, a physical house, and you go to Home Depot and you walk down the hardware aisle, you shouldn't be like, I'm going to use all of these tools except those three. And those three are a hammer, a screwdriver, and a drill. How do you think your house is going to come out? Because you said you weren't going to use a certain tool. When you build your physical house, your financial house, you start with the foundation. These are the assets that you can't go losing. This is making sure that you make sure that your essential income is covered, right? This is making sure all your lifestyle is taken care of. That's your rock, can't move, right? Bedrock. Then you build the walls. The walls is your income play. This is where you're now going to be able to afford the things that you want in your life. The travel and the golfing and the kids and the grandkids and the Disneys and all the stuff, right? And then you have your roof. This is the stuff you're probably never going to touch. And you're just going to light that on, and, put that on a, I got 30, 40, 20, 30 years of retirement. I'm just going to let that stuff grow, and I'm going to gift it to my kids and grandkids, and hopefully spend it a little bit with them while I'm here, and hopefully in a tax advantage position. But if I don't build that house properly and the storms come, it just falls over. Watch your charts. See, absolutely. Oh, so you like that? My joke about that, Rob, right? Insurance has doubled. Yeah, absolutely has. So, do we have any other questions? I don't think we have any other questions. We've been here for a while tonight, folks. So, those of you that are taking us up on 30 minutes of our time, we appreciate it in advance. We congratulate you for taking control of your own personal financial situation. Understand, again, we're going to do 3 things on that. We're going to gather some very, very simple basic data. You're not going to be sharing any statements or anything like that, or social security numbers. It's just, how old are you? What's your income? Social security look like? So we're going to suggest that if you haven't done it, you're going to go to the IRS website. I'm sorry, not the IRS website, but the Social Security website, and get your Social Security maximization report. It's just a report that you probably all have, or you get on an annual basis. It just tells you if you take it at 63 or 65 or 67, 70, where they kind of estimate what your monthly payments are going to be. Because we put that, obviously we utilize that into the equation, of course, because that's obviously when you start stacking your RMDs on top of all your other provisional income, that's where it can become problematic. So we'll do that math for you right there. Like I said, at the end of that, it's going to be a CPA ready report that you get to take along with you and do with as you please. So those of you that are taking us up on the tactical conversation, whether it's complimentary or 50% off, again, you're only doing that if you're going through on the tactical. You're still getting the strategic blueprint on a complimentary basis. So if we get to that point and you're like, oh, it doesn't make any sense for me to convert, there's no point in going to a tactical unless you're like, oh, you know what, I really like you guys and I want you to do all my stuff. Different conversation, different strokes for different folks. So folks, have a wonderful evening. We look forward to those conversations. If you guys all would say a prayer for me tomorrow, I'm going in for an ablation procedure on my heart. It's pretty normal, and I got one of the best electricians that are going to be on me, so I'm excited about that. And I look forward to those conversations soon. Rob, you're very, very welcome. Thompson, you're very, very welcome. And of course, we'll also invite you guys to all of our future webinars. We typically do these things on a weekly. Sometimes we do a couple especially this time of year, a couple of them like Medicare and Social Security, stuff like that. But Roth is a big, huge topic right now, especially with what's going on with what's changed with the legislation. And of course, what the OBBA has done for the next 8 years. And we want to help as many people as possible take advantage of that time period so that they can keep more of their money and give more of their money and spend more of their money and enjoy their lives and have much more peace of mind in retirement. So thank you all, folks. Have a great night. I look forward to speaking with you all soon. God bless.